So what is it? What's the one thing that's helped me most in my career? It's knowing myself, specifically knowing what I value. Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. Thank you so much for joining me in our first season of the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. I'm so excited to be on this journey with you as we launch into our first season and this first episode. But before we jump into our topic, I wanted to talk to you about who this podcast is for. It's for you, whether you're in the C-Suite or on your way. You might even be wondering what the heck the C-Suite even is. The C-Suite is another way of saying the top jobs at an organization. So traditionally, top jobs at big companies all start with a C in the acronym. So CEO, CFO, CMO are the ones that you're probably most familiar with. Those are the Chief Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, or Chief Marketing Officer, just to name a few. But not all companies call them that. Some top jobs at companies also have titles of Senior Vice President or Vice President, but basically the C-Suite includes all of the top jobs at a company. Do you have to be in the C-Suite to listen to this podcast? Absolutely not. We are being aspirational. So if you are a leader in your home or at work, at school, this podcast is for you. My husband and I joke at home that he's the CTO or the Chief Technology Officer because every time the Wi-Fi goes out or if the printer isn't working, he might be the first person that I complain to about it. Then he helps me fix it. And he reminds me that he's always happy to give me a promotion to CTO at any point. But regardless of your job title, we are a community who values belonging, and you belong here. So in today's episode, I want to talk about the one thing that's helped me more than anything else in my career. And in my career, I've been a consultant. I've been a human resources executive in a Fortune 50 company. I've even held a job in the C-Suite. And currently, I'm the founder of the Catch Group, an executive coaching practice. And at the Catch Group, we believe that we need more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at companies. And we hope that this podcast gives you the actionable tools and the motivation to be the authentic leader that you are in whatever role you're in now or in the future, and that you know that you belong. So what is it? What's the one thing that's helped me most in my career? It's knowing myself, specifically knowing what I value. My values are family, growth, development, achievement, advocacy, and balance. My values help serve as a foundation and a guidepost through leadership and in making personal and professional decisions, and they've been my guide to set boundaries as a working mother of 2 young kids in a pandemic while doing virtual learning, all the way through making big career choices. In Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, which is an amazing book if you haven't read it yet, there's a story that she recalls watching a reality TV survivalist show. You know, the kind of show that they drop you in the woods in the middle of nowhere and you have to find your way to survive, that kind of thing. That's kind of my worst nightmare, but I'm not a camper. I digress. So Glennon tells a story saying that, people survive basically by using a strategy called a touch tree. So you have to find a home base, one that is recognizable and enables you to venture out to find the things that you need for survival, like food and shelter. But then you come back to that touch tree, back to that home base. And that's the key, that home base. And I feel like that's the same way I feel about values. My values are my foundation or my home base. I'm an introvert and a people pleaser, and sometimes I feel pressured to do things how I'm supposed to, how an extrovert would, or how someone in my role used to do it. There's something that I feel sometimes like a discomfort that comes with it. And when I feel that discomfort, that's a clue, a sign in my body telling me that I need to go back to my home base. Don't get eaten by that bear. Or in reality, do what I know is best. The thing that I know is that is authentic to me, even if, and especially if, it means making a tough decision or having a tough conversation. I try to go into every new professional situation by framing myself and my leadership through my values. And as I talk about my values, others often ask me, how did I even figure them out? Is it something that they can figure out for themselves? And how might they be able to do that? So over the years, I've done multiple different exercises to get to my values. One example is called Invest in Your Values. It's from the same authors of Love 'Em or Lose 'Em, which is a book. And the exercise is where you prioritize your values by assigning different monetary values to it. So for instance, if it is a very important value, you give it a higher sum of money, and basically it's a way to prioritize your values in that guided exercise. And I really like exercises like that because, it's really hard to sometimes just do that free form, to be able to write down what your values are. And similarly, if you tried to do that, you might come up with things like honesty or integrity, and it wouldn't be very deep, and it might not even be different than someone's that's right next to you. And it's hard work to get to them because you really have to kind of peel back the onion. There's lots of different ways to get to values, lots of free resources on the internet. So there's quizzes, open-ended questions, lots of different stuff. I don't care how you do it, but I'd ask that you start by trying to understand what really matters to you right now at this time of your life. And you can do that by answering just a few key questions. So I'll give you a couple of prompts that have helped me as I think about what matters most to me. So first prompt, think about a time that you were at your best. What did it feel like and what did it look like? Just get a piece of paper, write down for a couple of minutes, think about a specific time in your life and describe it. What was it like? What did it feel like? What were you wearing? Who were you with? What was that situation where you were at your best? When I did this for myself, I wrote about executive coaching. I wrote about how much I loved building others' capability, one relationship at a time, having them see the insight for themselves and making progress on it. I wrote about getting better as a coach, about building my own capability, and that magic where you ask exactly the right question to get a leader on a path of self-discovery that they never would have gotten on their own. I wrote about getting to know different industries through different leaders and connecting the dots. I wrote about seeing them work through a problem or having the confidence to ask for a job that they wanted or a raise that they deserved. I wrote about hearing them say no and making the right decisions for themselves and their families. Next is the second prompt. Again, write about this for a couple of minutes in a notebook or jot it down in your notes app in your phone. Think about a time that you weren't at your best, when something just wasn't sitting right in your gut. What was that like? This kind of different side is really interesting to peel back because it's sometimes in the discomfort that you really find the clarity. So for this prompt, I wrote about being unsettled in a job that I didn't see a career path for myself anymore. It was an uncomfortable time because I wasn't being challenged and I didn't see the next way forward to me. I felt stuck. I had accomplished a lot at the time in that company and in that role. And if I stayed, I wondered if I would be learning anymore or if it would be the same. I wondered if the place was for me anymore. Had the culture changed, or was it I that really changed? And as I reviewed the two prompts and those answers, a few themes started emerging. being challenged, learning, helping others achieve their desired outcomes. And it led me to get to my values of growth, development, and achievement. By simply answering those 2 prompts, I was on my way to understanding what really mattered to me. I later used those values to guide the big and the small decisions on my career, leadership style, and most importantly, building boundaries. Boundaries that I keep because I'm motivated to, because they're tied to my values, my home base. I mentioned that one of my values is development, and that is what fuels my desire to help others reach their potential. So I've made this really easy for you. I've created a free values worksheet so that you can identify your values. Go to thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet. We'll also put the link in the show notes. I'll leave you with that action. Thank you for joining the first episode. I can't wait to keep learning together with this community. I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, then be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss a show. Editing and support for this podcast is from SNE Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.